Nvidia shares jumping more than 3% today as the chip giant gets ready to report earnings in less than 24 hours. And there's a lot to watch for in tomorrow's report. The company warned last month it will take a charge of up to $5.5 billion because of export controls on sending its H20 chip to China. The stock virtually flat this year. So what should we be watching in Nvidia earnings? A number of analysts on the street have already said that the impact from China and the export restrictions are not factored into consensus. So there's some expectation that that will be a miss there.
Yeah, I was talking to Gene Munster about this earlier today from Deepwater Asset Management. He'll probably be on the show tomorrow night or sometime this week to talk about it. I mean, you know, this $15 billion in lost sales is probably the big thing that people are focused on. And I think that's what you just said in general. I mean, he did, Jensen, allude to that. But what does it mean for guidance going forward? And I think the knee-jerk could be if you see lower than expected revenue guidance that people will sell, but then you might have them explain it on the call. So it's going to be one of those sorts of tricky calls. The one thing I'll just say is, like, here we are a month after, a few weeks after, all their major customers other than OpenAI and xAI have given their or confirmed their CapEx, and it really wasn't a problem for Nvidia. People weren't expecting that, greater than expected, or even if it just come in softer, what they were kind of perceiving it might be going forward. So Nvidia is probably in a perfectly fine spot because they're not going to guide down. We can feel pretty comfortable about that. If there's some concern about whatever that $15 billion in lost sales is, well, that would be the thing that people are going to look past at some point.
Do you think that the China business Nvidia should be effectively written down to zero?
No.
In other words, will the export restrictions be enough to actually really damage their standing in China? They have to cede competition. I mean, in the past 4 years, they've gone from 95% market share to 50% market share in 4 years.
All right, so let me rethink it a little bit. Yeah. So you write it down to zero, then,
what is the value?
Was $90 that write down to zero, or are we here now? So I think, you know what, that's fair. And I don't think $135 is the right price. But the CEO, has been speaking seemingly nonstop for the last 3 weeks. So just about anything you want.
Gensanity.
Did you just come up with that?
Well, no. I can't take credit, but I'm the only one using it, so I'm gonna,
No, take it.
I'm the guy right now on Gensanity.
My sense is anything you wanted to glean, you've been able to do over the last couple of weeks. So to me, it comes down to what are they going to talk about in terms of the back half of this year for margins? They promised they'd reaccelerate. We need to hear that.
Yeah, so you mentioned tariff and export controls. I think drilling into this $15 billion number, I think if it's all taken up front and made very clear that this is essentially a sunken cost, then I think it speaks to the fact that they don't think that there's going to be any wiggle room in terms of tariff and export controls. I think any leniency in that regard lends one to believe that perhaps that they think that this thing might oscillate back and forth. I think ultimately that's a positive for the stock.